It was just another ordinary morning at Millersville High, a respected public school on the outskirts of Austin, Texas. The long hallways, lined with smooth tiles and faded lockers, echoed with the usual clamor before the first bell. Students clustered in knots, exchanging gossip and laughter. Teachers shuffled behind their desks with coffee cups in hand, and notebooks flapped open as last-minute homework scribbles unfolded under fluorescent lights. But for one student, the day carried more than the weight of a pop quiz or a tardy slip. Daniel Cooper was different. Unlike his classmates, children of doctors, attorneys, real estate investors, and tech consultants, Daniel came from the outskirts of rural Travis County. His grandfather, Walter Cooper, was a rancher, a proud man whose hands were thick with years of honest labor, whose voice still carried the cadence of stories passed down through generations. Every day before the sun rose, Daniel fed livestock, repaired fencing, and loaded feed before grabbing his backpack and catching the school bus. His jeans, though clean, held a faint scent of hay. His boots were scuffed at the edges, and his face bore the calm of someone who didn't need approval to feel pride. Daniel was quiet, reserved. He never sought the spotlight. He had no Instagram presence, no viral dance moves in the hallway. He simply came to class, submitted his work, and carried himself with quiet composure. But that quietness became his vulnerability. In high school, silence can be an invitation for cruelty. A snide comment in the lunchroom, a laugh too loud when he raised his hand, a nickname he hadn't asked for. Most days he bore it with grace. But one morning in room 214, a Thursday that would come to define his high school years, everything changed. At the front of the room stood Ms. Vivian Hartford, a woman whose posture was as rigid as her grading policy. Her dark skirts never showed a wrinkle, her blouses always buttoned up to the neck. A woman who believed discipline was a form of virtue, and kindness an indulgence. For some, her praise was a coveted trophy. For others, her disdain was a daily bruise. Daniel slid into his seat. The U.S. history textbook rested in his lap, dog-eared and underlined. Miss Hartford launched into her lecture, speaking briskly about Reconstruction policies after the Civil War. Daniel struggled to focus. That morning, a fence post had split, and he'd been late fixing it. He'd missed breakfast, and the long bus ride had dulled his energy. Halfway through the lecture, her voice sliced through the room. "Mr. Cooper," she said, "why was the Compromise of 1877 significant?" Daniel blinked. He knew the answer. He just needed a moment. "It ended Reconstruction," he began. She arched an eyebrow. "And that meant—" Daniel faltered. "It let the South regain," her voice sharpened. "You think it let the South what?" "Build more barns." A few students laughed. Daniel looked down. "Perhaps," she continued, "if you spent less time shoveling manure and more time reading your textbook, you'd know the answer." More laughter. Daniel's face flushed. Still, he remained silent. A mess. Hartford didn't stop. "Frankly, I don't know why we waste classroom seats on someone better suited for livestock auctions than historical discourse." This time, even the snickering students went quiet. The sting in her words had gone too far. Daniel stood up. His fingers gripped the desk in front of him. His voice, when he spoke, was soft but unwavering. "You can question my answers, ma'am," he said, "but not my worth." She stared back at him, unblinking. "Then prove it, or walk out." He picked up his bag, walked out. Not a word. That he didn't yell, didn't slam the door. He walked out into the sun and pulled out his phone. There was only one person he trusted enough to call in that moment. His grandfather. Walter Cooper didn't hesitate. He showed up 30 minutes later in his truck, denim shirt buttoned high, hat in hand. He didn't ask what happened. Daniel didn't need to explain. Walter walked into the school office and calmly requested to speak to the principal. 2 hours later, Superintendent Lauren Baker received a formal grievance. The school board reviewed it. It turned out Daniel wasn't the first. 3 other students. Different years, different moments. Same teacher, same disdain. 2 weeks later, Miss Hartford was placed on administrative leave at the end of the year. Daniel was invited to deliver the closing speech at the school's academic awards night. He wore the same boots, the same steady gaze. But this time, he stood on the stage. They said a boy like me belonged in the dirt, he said. But they forgot that's where everything good begins to grow. The auditorium erupted. Not just applause, something deeper. Respect. Daniel graduated with honors. He received a scholarship from the Texas Historical Society for an essay on post-Reconstruction civil rights. Today, he studies education policy at the University of Texas, aiming to become a teacher. One who understands that respect is earned through character, not pedigree. And back in Millersville, whenever a teacher stands at the front of a classroom, they remember the boy who carried dignity in silence, who refused to let cruelty define his future, and who taught an entire school the real meaning of worth.